Can being stressed out actually make you more biased in the way you perceive the world and make decisions? That's what we're going to investigate on this episode of the Space Doctor series. Hey everyone, my name is Angela. I'm an architect, researcher, and feng shui practitioner. I make thoughtful weekly videos on the science of design for well-being. I do this using my Saluted Genesis card deck, which has two parts. We have foundational concepts, things that are the root of wellness or dis-ease, as well as what my research has shown are 5 core theories or aspects that make up salutogenesis. Each of those has many more things that I've found either in studies and research papers or other theories that contribute to these main theories. So every single week, I draw a card from each part of the deck. I set an intention while I'm shuffling that it'll be the information we all most need. And that's why you need to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. You don't have to do this research. I've already done it. And the cards help you understand this in ways that are easy to understand and, more importantly, put to use, whether you are an architect like me, an interior designer, or just somebody who wants to be an advocate for a better built environment because you've noticed that design does make a difference. The card I drew from the foundational concepts part of the deck for this week is stress. Now you can see here what we see is this lightning bolt as well as a companion lightning bolt striking a mountaintop. Stress is just a natural reaction. Stress itself is not good or bad. It's how our body reacts to changes or challenges in our environment. The big thing to say about stress is it is a disruptor, just like that lightning bolt. And it can either be a catalyst for good or bad. That is why we have the gray sky, which symbolizes ambiguity and multiple possibilities, and the lightning that starts to show us that we need to have sudden change sometimes in order to really see the truth behind something or focus our attention. The interesting thing about stress is that biologically human beings have evolved this response to escape danger or to fight danger. That is a very, very different thing than what most of us encounter when we feel stressed today. However, our body is still perceiving the thing that's stressing us out as a danger. Now, that means it's going to have focused attention on the issue, which is when stress can be a motivator and a good thing. But it also means that several chain reactions are happening in our body. So the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis gets activated. Adrenaline and cortisol flood our system. Higher level of thought in our brain shuts down our immune system and digestive system, gets suspended, and all the blood rushes to our limbs. Very useful back in the early days of human evolution. Not so helpful today, and here's why. Today I want to talk specifically about how stress impacts our mental acuity. So you heard me say higher level of thought shuts down. And that means that stress actually increases the likelihood that you're going to make biased decisions. And there's lots of reasons for this. Rongjung Yu, in a very good white paper, talks about this extensively, and the fact that the stress response will increase more intuitive, more emotional, more reactive kind of thinking, or applying things you already know will work. So this is like minimal effort brain function, right? It's happening in a lower part of the brain because the activation of the subcortical, the reactive part of your brain, has happened as part of the stress response. And that region of the brain is more emotionally based. It's why we get triggered and we can go into a very highly reactive state quickly, just like flipping a light switch. The analytical thinking part of our brain has been shut down. So that prefrontal executive control region is suppressed. So the ability to weigh the pros and cons of a decision, to look at facts, to do a little bit of research or investigation, that's all gone when the stress response is activated. So, very important to think about, because when we are navigating the built environment in a stressed out state, or people that we want to design for are doing that, they're going to bring that much more reactive, much more emotional, much more biased, pattern based way of interpreting the world along with them. Card they drew from the aspects part of the deck is confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is part of the sense of coherence aspect. And sense of coherence is all about how meaningful, manageable, and comprehensible a space is. It's associated with the metal element in feng shui, which is all about logic and reasoning. Now, confirmation bias specifically is the tendency to interpret the things we encounter through the lens of existing beliefs, meaning we seek, interpret, even remember things that confirm what we want to believe, meaning it is going to skew our perception. Just like here in this example on the card, you can see a typical classroom setting, but from the point of view of someone sitting in one of these desks, there is tunnel vision only on the blackboard and bad grades. Nothing else really is in this person's awareness. And that is exactly how confirmation bias works. Like we learned earlier, talking about the stress card, when we have a strong emotional attachment to something and we have a trigger in the environment, it is purely emotional. It is purely centered on our pre-existing beliefs. And the stronger the emotional trigger is, the more strongly that confirmation bias will be. Now, the idea of confirmation bias was popularized by a cognitive psychologist named Peter Wasson, and further studies in cognitive psychology as well as neuroscience studies both show that opinions are formed based on emotions far more than facts. We think that people will respond to logic, reason, convincing arguments, but actually it's the opposite. It's what they already believe and the emotional attachment they have to that belief. Additionally, we all look for proof of things we already believe. We will filter out information that challenges that. So even though there can be a lot of facts that say, I don't think what you think is really what's going on, somebody who's very, very invested in what they believe is going to ignore all of that other information, just like you saw that tunnel vision in the classroom. Our worldview forms in early childhood, and we grew up in a close community, and the beliefs of the people in that close community likely led to the formation of our own beliefs. meaning that there's kind of an echo chamber effect and a self-fulfilling prophecy around these collective beliefs. So they've been reinforced very powerful. A couple things I want to talk about specifically with confirmation bias. The first is the point of view of the designer. We do not, as architects, interior designers, advocates in the community, want to bring our own confirmation bias to the work that we do. So it means we have to be aware of our biases. We also need to understand the people that we are designing for and what biases they might have so that we can avoid any symbolism or imagery that will be seen as negative to them. It means we need to seek out diversity, critical thinking, explore alternative explanations, not just assume, because most beliefs we just default accept as the truth, that certain things really are true. We need to challenge that more in our design process. And part of how you do that is engaging in more collaborative discussions, doing more co-design with the community. Now, confirmation bias doesn't always have to be negative. As a designer, we can also apply it in a way to be more positive. So maybe we want to reinforce confidence. Maybe we want more sense of community or social cohesiveness. So we can start to think about what things will automatically signal to someone that this is a place they belong, that this is a place they can feel good in, that this is a place they can make friends and find other like-minded people. Say in a university where you've got incoming freshmen, and it's really important that they get acclimated and that they have a true sense of identity with the school that they're attending. This could happen in a workplace when you've got someone joining the company. Put things in the environment that are going to signal to them that this is the place. We can also use confirmation bias when we want to help people make better decisions or deliberate more or weigh pros and cons more. The less the brain has to expend energy interpreting and understanding or dealing with an emotional reaction that's negative to a space, the more time the brain has, the more energy to focus on decision making or those higher level thought processes. Lots of applications for that, like the classroom example, a boardroom, a community room where we're going to have public hearings or community meetings. Now let's layer in the feng shui of it all. So in feng shui, sense of coherence, in particular confirmation bias, really comes in the form of environmental anchors. So in our space, the objects in it symbolize to us certain things. So that really ugly couch that your mother-in-law talked you into, that you feel resentment towards both her and yourself every time you look at it, that's a negative environmental anchor. It takes away your confidence. It takes away your sense that you have good interpersonal skills or the ability to be self-determinant. On the other hand, that framed copy of your license or diploma, a trophy, a medal, anything like that, is reaffirming to you your accomplishments, that you've worked hard, that you've set goals, that you've been determined and you achieved something. There can be lots of things. There could be souvenirs from a trip you've taken, artwork, even things that are centered around certain ritualistic activities that you have, like a favorite armchair that is part of an evening wind down ritual, becomes an environmental anchor. So think about what you want to encourage in a space the artwork, the objects, the processes that symbolize that, and make sure and add them in. So just to wrap up, stress does affect the way that we think. Our critical thinking and our judgment both get skewed by emotional core reactions when we are stressed out. And confirmation bias is one way that that starts to show up. We filter out everything else and only see the things that confirm the emotional state that we are now in. If you'd like to hear more about this, make sure that you do like and subscribe, and then you can take a look on the Space Doctor playlist, and anything that is coded with an orange background will be covering the sense of coherence aspect. So if you want to learn more about that, make sure you do that. In the meantime, take care, and I will see you next time.